Are you trying to dive deeper into infinite banking? Are you trying to learn more about it? What are the best books that you can read right now? I'm gonna give you my list today. All right, so what are these best books for infinite banking, right? And there's several out there. By the way, I'm even writing a book right now called Upside Down Millionaire that should be coming out in the next several months, also addressing some infinite banking. But I wanna give you some of these book ideas that I've read as well that I thought were actually very impactful for me, and I think could actually benefit you too. The first one I would say here is the one that really, it's like the Bible of the infinite banking concept. Shout out to the Nelson Nash Institute. This book is written by Nelson Nash called Becoming Your Own Banker. This one was written back in the 90s. It's a little bit outdated, but it is a great book. It does give you a good fundamental understanding of how infinite banking works. Do I agree with everything in it? No, of course not. For example, back in the 90s, interest rates were even way higher than they are today. So they would talk about using your infinite banking policy to go buy cars. Now they were addressing this to people that were more like the Dave Ramsey fans, right? Those that hated debt. They were like the ultimate penny pinching savers. Those that were like debt adverse. So they'd say, here, use this instead. Even though you're technically using debt, when you borrow from your insurance company, because it's collateralized debt, it's not really debt, right? So they would show about using that and then pay yourself back. So it's created a lot of myths and misunderstandings, and that's why it's gotten a really bad reputation over the years by certain financial pundits, like our good old buddy Dave Ramsey, bless his Tennessee heart. But you got guys like him that absolutely hate on it because of what people have taught. But again, a great book gives you good foundational understanding to start with. Okay, the second book that I think actually give you more ideas of what you could be doing with life insurance, even beyond just infinite banking, but even just show you the full gamut of what's possible, is a book called Live Your Life Insurance by Kim Butler. Now, this is a friend of mine. She's a great woman. She actually had co-written a book with Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad guy. And so she talks about the different ways to use it. Now, this book is awesome in the sense that it's short. For me, I like that because I'm not a very fast reader. I'm a much better Audible listener. Like even my YouTube videos, I'll listen at a higher speed so I can get through content and absorb it faster. I'll still read, of course, but it's nice to have a short book that kind of gets to the point. I'll say this about the book though. It's not the easiest read. She's not like a very well-written author, but the concepts in there are good. In fact, do not skim over the end, like the last half of the book, which is all glossary. Those definitions of the glossary actually gives you some of the best ideas of how to use your life insurance. So that one, and that not just the cash value, not just that tax-free savings account, but also the death benefit too. Even things like, did you know you could sell your death benefit to investors even while you're alive and get cash now versus waiting to die to get paid? So you can do things like that. So she talks about that in that book. So a great book to read. So the next book I'd recommend here is The Power of Zero by David McKnight. Now this book, I actually had recommended by other people, even in the infinite banking space, never heard of it. But when I read it, I actually like it. Now, do I agree with everything on it? Of course not. Even though he's not a planner, he is teaching more from that traditional accumulation theory kind of mentality. But here's what I love about that book, is that the whole point of The Power of Zero is, how can you eventually spend down your money to zero, right? How do you spend down all your wealth while you're alive? And the cool thing is, if you have life insurance, the death benefit can make sure to pay back any bills that you have left over. Because for example, I know the fact that I have a death benefit, I know that I can actually have a mortgage. I don't worry about paying off my house because in the traditional mindset, they tell you just buy term insurance and then when you're too old, you can't keep it anymore, which is kind of sucky because you pay all this money in and then you never get anything back out because you lived, right? And then when you die, whatever you die with is taxable life insurance. You ever thought of that before? So anyways, so if I have a death benefit that's gonna come to pay any bills I have left standing, why not pay off my mortgage? Why not let that money stay there at 2.75%? Well, I can make 10, 12, 20% or more in my real estate, create more wealth faster because I didn't pay off my mortgage, all because I had a death benefit, right? So things like that, those kind of concepts that you really, when you start to expand your mind, you realize this is not just about using that cash value again. It's about, you can use the cash value as tax-free income and you can still, it's almost like this, you can actually disinherit your kids, but still not disinherit them. You can spend down all your money while you're alive, but then still leave some money behind for your family, especially if there's any bills left behind, or even if you want to leave some money behind, if you want to leave a legacy, that's the power that you get with life insurance. So that's a good book that can expand your mind. Now the fourth book, I was debating about whether to do a fourth book or not, but I'm going to do this one by my old buddy Garrett Gunderson, right? For those of you that follow us long enough, I actually was the one that taught the concepts that he has in this book. Now, not all of them. I'm not saying I did the whole Rockefeller concept, right? Again, What Would the Rockefellers Do is a great book. I think he had to change it to What Would Billionaires Do or something like that. I think they changed the title. But if you look up Rockefeller, you'll usually find his book. Now, just so you know, good concepts taught in this book. Garrett, by the way, is an amazing speaker. If you've ever seen him on stage, does an awesome job there. What's kind of cool though, for those of you guys that follow my channel and subscribed to this Money Ripples channel, be sure to do that now. We actually talk about cash flow index, which is actually my concept. He actually mentions it in that book. So he mentions my cash flow index. He also mentions cash flow banking, which is the infinite banking concept I brought to him over 13 years ago now. So it's kind of cool to see that stuff mentioned in there. So I'm not doing it just because I get not mentioned in the book, but my concepts are mentioned. But there is a good concept there. And I know a lot of people come to us because they say, hey, wait a minute, you're the one that actually helped to create this, between myself and Garrett and even like his attorney. I talked about a lot of this too. His attorney, by the way, is brilliant. He's my attorney as well. But great concepts of like, what did the Rockefellers do? How did they actually use this as a tool to be able to not just create wealth now, but also pass on generational wealth by buying multiple policies on you, your spouse, your kids, all paying into a trust. And then that pays out as well into the trust and for generation to generation, where they have to borrow from the trust. They have to borrow from that to get the money out, but they have to pay it back with interest so that you never actually run out of money, that your family wealth grows generation after generation like the Rockefellers did, as opposed to the Vanderbilts, who eventually went broke and then eventually they had to go get jobs on CNN, like Anderson Cooper and people like that. So that's where it's kind of cool to see that concept work. So again, I'm going beyond just infinite banking, but that's the thing. I think it's awesome. Now, you can, of course, if you're subscribed to this channel, there's a lot of videos, a lot of content about infinite banking. We even do live masterclasses on this, usually about once a month or so, that you can actually watch and get more details. If you want to just see that, you can also go to moneyripples.com, click on the infinite banking section, and go down the rabbit hole to learn more about how you can actually use this policy in a way that gives you the best ROI possible in your situation, guaranteed. Go check that out at moneyripples.com.